On a cool spring morning in Buenos Aires, December 17, 1936, a baby boy named Jorge Mario Bergoglio was born into a family of Italian immigrants. The world he entered was one of hardship and hope. Argentina was grappling with political unrest, but the Bergoglio family clung to faith and family. Jorge was the eldest of five children, raised with values rooted deeply in Catholicism, humility, and hard work. From an early age, Jorge was marked by a quiet seriousness. While other boys chased soccer balls through the dusty streets, he preferred quiet corners, books, and helping his mother around the house. Yet he wasn't without mischief. Stories tell of a young boy who loved tango music, who once had a teenage crush, and who nearly lost his life to a serious lung infection. The scar from that illness would remain, a reminder of how fragile life is. He studied chemistry and briefly worked as a technician at a laboratory. But something deeper stirred inside him, a quiet voice calling him toward a different kind of service. At 21, he entered the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, choosing a life of discipline, poverty, and service to others. It was a radical choice in a time when power and privilege were the paths of success. Little did he know that path would one day lead to the throne of St. Peter. As a Jesuit, Jorge Bergoglio embraced a life of study, prayer, and humble service. He wasn't drawn to the grandeur of church vestments or titles, but to the gritty work of tending souls in the streets of Buenos Aires. His superiors recognized a quiet charisma in him, and in 1969 he was ordained a priest. His pastoral style stood out immediately. He walked through poor neighborhoods, visited the sick, and heard confessions for hours. He took the bus with commuters, shopped at local markets, and insisted on cooking his own meals. He didn't speak of God from a distance. He lived with the people, listening more than he preached. In 1973, at just 36 years old, he became the provincial superior of the Jesuits in Argentina. It was a tumultuous time. The country was under a brutal military dictatorship, and the church walked a dangerous line between silence and resistance. Bergoglio was criticized for his cautious approach, yet he quietly sheltered those in danger and helped many escape persecution. He later admitted mistakes during that period. He didn't always speak out loudly enough, but his honesty about his own shortcomings became one of his defining traits. He was, in his own words, a sinner whom the Lord has looked upon. By the time he was appointed Archbishop of Buenos Aires in 1998, his reputation was clear. A man of the poor, a pastor who lived simply and preached with his hands as much as his words. Then came the call that would change not just his life, but the church itself. In March 2013, the world watched with bated breath as white smoke rose from the Sistine Chapel. Cardinals had gathered to elect a successor to Pope Benedict XVI, who had made the rare decision to resign due to ill health. The church was at a crossroads, wounded by scandals, facing a crisis of relevance, and deeply divided. Few expected Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio, Archbishop of Buenos Aires, to emerge on that historic evening. He was not a favorite, nor was he campaigning, but he was known to those inside the conclave, a man of deep humility, unwavering simplicity, and spiritual depth. And so when the time came, the College of Cardinals looked to the ends of the earth. On March 13, 2013, Bergoglio stepped out onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica as the 266th Pope. He chose a name no pope had ever taken, Francis, in honor of St. Francis of Assisi, the poor man of peace who loved creation and lived among the forgotten. Buonasera, he said gently to the crowd. Good evening. He bowed his head and asked the people to pray for him, a reversal of tradition that stunned the world. In that moment, millions knew something had changed. Pope Francis didn't move into the grand papal apartments. He stayed in the modest guest house, the Casa Santa Marta. He refused a gold cross, keeping the simple iron one he'd worn for years. He washed the feet of prisoners, kissed the disfigured, embraced the homeless. He spoke softly but firmly, how I would love a church that is poor and for the poor. But he didn't shy away from hard truths. In his final years, Pope Francis carried his cross more visibly. His smile remained, but it grew slower. His steps shortened. His breathing, once steady during long papal audiences, grew shallower with each passing month. He often spoke from a wheelchair, His hands trembled slightly as he lifted the chalice during Mass, and yet he would not stop. The Vatican offered him rest, but he waved it off. A shepherd should smell like his sheep, he once said, and he refused to disappear behind walls of comfort. Even with doubled pneumonia, he delivered blessings from the window. Even with pain in his knees and back, he traveled. South Sudan, Mongolia, Lisbon. His presence, more than ever, reminded people of the suffering Christ. Still speaking, still reaching out, and even as the body began to falter. In early 2025, during Lent, Francis gave a particularly moving homily. Every day is a dying and a rising. When the Lord calls me home, I will go as a sinner, not a saint. But I hope I have loved enough to be recognized. The world didn't know then, but he did. His body had begun to fail. He was quietly preparing. On Easter Sunday, April 20th, 2025, he gave what would be his final public blessing. From his balcony at Domus Sanctae Marthae, his voice was soft, nearly a whisper. May peace be with you, and may Christ walk with you always. The next morning, April 21st, 2025, Easter Monday, Pope Francis passed away peacefully in his sleep. The time of death was 6:33 a.m., cause complications from a stroke leading to heart failure. He was 88 years old. The bells of St. Peter's Basilica tolled slowly that morning. The news spread swiftly from Rome to Manila, from Nairobi to Buenos Aires. Pope Francis is gone, flags at half-mast, candles lit in cathedrals. People, Catholics, agnostics, Muslims, atheists, gathered silently, not just to mourn a pope, but to honor a man who had made them feel seen. A pope who asked for forgiveness. A pope who kissed the poor, who spoke of mercy more than judgment. A pope who had dared to say, "Who am I to judge?" Leaders of the world paid tribute. Presidents, prime ministers, activists, and religious figures praised his courage. But the most moving words came not from powerful men, but from the voiceless he had so often championed. He visited our refugee camp. He didn't wear gloves. He hugged us. He told me my disabled child was a blessing, not a curse. He listened to me in confession for 15 minutes and didn't say a single harsh word. He looked at me and said, "You belong." His funeral was held in St. Peter's Square, but per his wishes, it was simpler than any in recent history. No golden casket, no long eulogies, just the gospel, some silence, and the people. As his coffin was carried out, the crowd broke into spontaneous applause, like they had the day he was elected. Pope Francis was buried at the Basilica of St. Mary Major, near the icon of the Virgin Mary he often prayed to before journeys. It was said he requested to be buried among the people, not under marble or behind gates. In the years to come, his papacy would be remembered as one of the most transformative in modern times. He didn't change doctrine overnight, but he changed the church's tone. He reminded the world that faith is not just about laws or rituals, but about love. Love for the poor, love for the broken, love that listens, love that includes. And so Jorge Mario Bergoglio, the shepherd from the end of the world, returned to his creator, leaving behind not just a church more aware, but a world more awake.